Let me show you how I make my yeasted marbled cranberry bread that I make every single year around this time. It's so good, perfect with a cup of coffee or anything of your liking, and it's just so delicious and so easy. It's going to start with a very basic yeasted dough, and it just calls for basic ingredients like flour, yeast, sugar, salt, melted butter, and a combination of warm milk and water. I start this on my counter and then I go ahead and move it to the standing mixer so that it can continue to knead and come together into a smooth dough. Once it's there, I cover it and I let it rise until doubled in volume. And once it's there, you're going to deflate it and place it on a lightly floured surface and get that rolling. Now, I already have shared an entire full recipe on this many moons ago. I want to say about 10 years ago. And it's still the same recipe that I've loved for that long. It's so good. I think very foolproof, and it's absolutely delicious and so festive. And I'm going to go ahead and roll this out. Now, I went ahead and used leftover cranberry sauce for this because the recipe for the cranberry mixture is basically a cranberry sauce. But if you don't have any leftover cranberry sauce, just make the mixture that's listed in the recipe, which I will have directly linked for you in the description down below. I added a little more orange zest for just a little extra citrus punch because I love it around this time of year. And then you're going to go ahead and roll it. Now, the original recipe just tells you to roll it like a jelly roll and then place it in a baking pan, like a loaf pan, in sort of a zigzag manner. I had like a wild hair and I decided to feel like, you know what, I was excited for the day and I was going to do something real fancy, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it down the middle and do a little bit of a twist-a-maroo. It does look really pretty, but it is really messy. So I would just say follow what the original recipe and video call for by just placing it in a loaf pan in a zigzag pattern, okay? But this to me just felt really pretty, but it was very messy. You can see I just cut the whole thing down in half and then I just twist it around itself into like a makeshift two-piece braid, if you will. I placed it in a loaf pan that I lined with some parchment paper because I knew that the sugars and the cranberry sauce would burn and I didn't want it to stick to my loaf pan. And then I covered it and I let that rest for 45 minutes. And then once it was ready, I made a little streusel topping for it, which is again very basic: sugar, flour, butter. Crumbled it all together. I used a pastry cutter and then I switched to my hands until it just had this like crumbly texture. And then I went ahead and sprinkled it all over my loaf. And once it was really well coated in that streusel topping, I popped it into the oven at 350 for about an hour. And then I let it cool completely before slicing into it and enjoying. It's so good. It's kind of like a panettone. It's so easy. The recipe is linked for you. Hope you make it and I hope you enjoy, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.